Okay, we're just mounting the racket, and it's important here not to over tighten the racket. There needs to be just a little bit of movement to allow the racket to expand as you're putting the main strings in. I'm going to clamp off one end and pull the tension against that here. We start in the middle and we're going to work out evenly on both sides. That avoids stressing one side of the racket over the other, so that we don't distort the frame in any way. As we go over, so we're just working out evenly on either side. So I'm going to do 4 strings on this side of the racket, clamp them off. I'm now going to go back, remove my start clamp, re-tension this side so that we've got full tension on that string, and then work out on the other side, and then start to alternate strings as we get towards the outside of the frame. We string each string individually, so we're pulling the full tension on every string. Some stringers will maybe try and get away with pulling 2 strings at a time, but if you do that, you don't get the full tension on both strings. So it's important that you actually tension each string as you go along. This racket's not at too high a tension. We're going to do this one at 25 pounds. It's 24 pound for the mains, and then we'll do 26 pound on the crosses. For this one, we're using the Yonex's hybrid string, the Aerobite. So this string is, the red string goes into the mains. This is the one, it's the control element of the string. It's with a polyurethane coating, which gives it that rubberized texture, which will grip the string, give a steep angle to smashes, and good spin and control on the net shots. The biggest mistake will be not mounting the racket correctly in the first place. By trying to do it too tightly, or by stretching the frame and elongating the racket head, which then moves it out of shape. Mount the frame. We use an H-piece here at the top of the racket. That avoids damaging the machine, doing any damage to the head of the racket by pressurizing there. It spreads the load. We come across rackets that are cracked at the very top of the racket, and that's almost inevitably because it's been strung by somebody without using an H-piece. So we're doing these outside mains, then I insert a small length of string on the outside of the frame, and we do this so that when I come to put the cross strings in, where the main strings are running over the top of a grommet or the top of a hole, I can use this scrap of string to lift the main strings and get easy access to the hole underneath. We're using a Yonex electronic machine, the ProTech 8 Dulux, which is kind of the flagship of the Yonex range. So it's fully electronic with a touch screen and electronic tension head. Yeah, we do get a few players. If I'm honest, it's not really something that Yonex recommend, but there are some players that want to have the strings pre-stretched. And what that actually does, it means if you're, let's just for argument's sake, say you're stringing at 30 pounds, the machine will take it up to 33 and then bring it back down to 30 pounds. The theory behind it is by overstretching the string, it will help retain its tension for longer. So it's not something that Yonex particularly recommend, partly because the badminton string being as thin as it is, it actually doesn't relax evenly over the whole length of the string. Okay, the knot that I use is one that we've developed to stop the string slipping back into the hole. So we start with a relatively simple half hitch. We're then going to do another one in front of that. That gives me 2 loops. I pass 1 loop through the other. And we do this so that when we pull up the knot, the string comes out at the bottom of the knot rather than the top. We take the loose end round the back, pass it through both loops, and then you pull up on the closed end of the string. We just do it hand tight. We don't use a clamp, or certainly not the tension head, to pull the string. If you do that, there's a good risk that you're going to damage the anchor string that it's tied onto. So just hand tight, pull it up, release the clamps, and cut off the tails as close as you can to the frame, and that's the main strings done. So we're going to use a separate length of string to do the crosses, and because this is a hybrid string, it's a different string. This is the thin element, the aerosonic string, which is 0.61 millimeters thick. That's going to optimize the power element, the repulsion element of this string, whereas say that the main strings are designed more for control. Okay. We snip the end of the string at an angle. That makes it a lot easier to pass through the holes. Start on hole number 9, which is one above where the knot is. Weave across. Out the other side. And just pull a length of string through, enough to reach the tension head. And take the other end of the string. It's not so much the weaving as such, although when you start off, when you're learning to string, this will take a lot longer and you end up with a string that's kind of notched towards the end, but that's not too big a problem because that part of the string doesn't end up in the racket, it's the cut-off bit at the end. But it's here where you're pulling the string across the face of the racket. You really want to make sure that the string's traveling up and down the racket rather than straight across, as that will reduce the friction and it will minimize or eradicate any damage to the casing of the strings, either the main string or indeed the cross string. Okay. Here we need to get 2 strings through the same hole, so I'm using an awl just to lever the string slightly to one side, and that gives you easier passage, and allows you to, say, get a second string through the same hole. Same on the other side of the racket. Just slightly move the string, and then that will slip through quite easily. If you, from start to finish, without any interruptions, and assuming there's no great problems en route, it's about 18 to 20 minutes on average for me to string a racket. A few years ago, we actually had one couple in the final of the All England. Player broke about 3 rackets, so we had to try and do a quick rush job on it and get it back to him before the end of the match. Obviously in tennis, matches sometimes go on for 4 and 5 hours. Badminton doesn't last that long, so if you're going to get a racket back to the stringer and back on court within the time span, then you've got to get cracking on it pretty quickly. Otherwise, the match will be over before you get the racket strung. As we're working up the frame, you'll notice we're stringing or weaving one string ahead of the one that we're tensioning. This process actually makes the weaving a lot easier. Okay. As I clamp the string, then I want to try and position the clamp fairly close to the frame of the racket. That way you're minimising the tension loss. I actually don't like clamping it right next to the frame because there's always a little bit of frame movement. And as we go up the head of the racket, we try to keep the strings as straight as possible. We'll straighten them out, have a little exercise when we finish to make sure they are all perfectly straight. But if you don't do that, the strings will tend to curve towards the top of the racket, and then when you straighten them out, you actually lose tension. So as we tension each string, we just push it down slightly to keep it as straight as possible. Another one of the benefits of this machine is that there are two displays on the touch screen. One of it refers to the tension that you're pulling to, but the other one actually recognises when it's reached that tension. So, because it's important that you don't release clamps and clamp strings before it's actually reached its full tension. Otherwise, you think you're stringing at 28 or 30, but in reality, you might only be stringing at 27 or 28. When we get to this point where the strings with the side supports here, need to be careful that you put the string through the holes on those side supports. I have known a stringer that didn't do that. Strung the racket, tried to take it off the machine, and then realised he'd strung the racket to the machine. This section of the head, where again we're getting to double holes, shared holes, and blocked holes. So when I get to this area, we've got less room to work with, so the weaving gets a little bit more tricky. And also there's a little bit more resistance when you're trying to pull through. And this can result in the string kind of twisting around itself as you pull through. So once I get up to here, I'm going to pull the tension and clamp before I pull the string through. That way I can control the string better and stop it coiling up, because that can cause the string to kink, to notch, and to damage the string. Okay, this is where these little straps of string come in useful. I can put the starts clamp either side of them at the end of the cross string. Just gently move that across, and we should be able, I can see the hole. Again on the other side, lever up, that goes through nice and easily. Okay, for the top 5 strings, we're actually going to take the tension back down to 24, which was what we did the main strings at. This is actually the weakest part of the frame up at the top here, and also the string length is slightly shorter. So by taking the tension back down, we're reducing the stress slightly and actually evening out, say the stress is on the racket. This is what I mean, the string, as you're pulling through, it's tending to coil up here. But if I put my thumb through there and just pull through gently, then we can control that and avoid that happening too much. I reckon I'm now doing about 2,500 a year. I've been going for 35 years. Obviously we weren't stringing anything like that many at the beginning, but I would say overall I must be somewhere around the 60,000 mark. And there's still a few years left on the clock. It's a little bit tight right at the top, so long as we're careful, shouldn't be a problem now. Just finishing off, one half hitch, the other one in front, pull one through the other, string around the back and through both, pull up without catching the teeth of the clamp. Release the clamp, cut off the ends, and as I was talking about earlier, just to finish off, we use a setting off awl, which has got a blunt point to it, so we're not going to jab it straight into the string and damage or break the string, but just pull these cross strings down so they're nice straight lines, and it looks better, particularly once you've put the logo on. It doesn't really affect the performance, it's more of a cosmetic thing, but it's all part of the service. Okay, all that remains to be done is to take it over to the other side of the stringing area, pop the stencil on, and then it's ready for use. A Nano Flare 800 racket, strung at 25 pounds in Aerobite.